Welcome to the Domestic Abuse Breakthrough Show, where we tackle domestic abuse, coercive control, and violence through education, awareness, and real understanding. I'm your host, Kate Beasley, trauma-informed domestic abuse and risk assessment specialist, behavioural analyst, and trainer. But I'm also a survivor, just like many of you listening here today. This show contains a trigger warning. Most people are told to report instances immediately to the police. But what if reporting immediately increased your risk? You see, here's the truth. Patterns and timing matter. So what do I mean? In some instances, when you are still living with the perpetrator, unless you are in imminent danger right here, right now, reporting to the police could in fact increase your risk. Just take that in for a second. Could increase your risk. Risk increases tenfold when we report to the police and the police do not take action. The trouble is, in criminal threshold is incredibly high. So for things like coercive control, where we're not just proving the behaviour's taken place, we're having to prove that their intention was to make you feel, think a certain way, and live by a certain set of rules. That's where mental health becomes a perpetrator's best friend. Because if we can't prove that their intention was to make you feel, think a certain way, and live by a certain set of rules, the criminal threshold hasn't been met. So this is why I always say, unless you are in imminent danger, i.e. right now, your life is in danger, your best plan of action is to exit safely, come up with a plan, put things in place. And this is why we have safety exit plans. This is why they exist. And I'll tell you at the end of this episode how you can access the one that I've put together for you, for anybody who needs it. Because the thing is, the way coercive control moves, coercive control isn't always loud. It isn't always obvious a lot of the time. It's certainly not obvious to a lot of people who, that'll be friends, colleagues, family members, general people, neighbours even. It might not be obvious. And it may be done in a way that causes you to question your own version of reality. So if you're questioning your own version of reality and you're being gaslit all of the time, the chances are you probably don't have an awful lot of evidence. Well, if you don't have an awful lot of evidence to demonstrate something that requires a pattern of behaviour to be presented to the police to be able to take action, you don't have a strong case. So does that mean you don't do anything? No, not at all. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. What I am saying though is that if you exit first safely, once you remove, because remember, everything so far has been mainly done behind closed doors. Or if it has been done out in public, it's been done so subtly, it has been a subtle look that carries a lot of meaning to you. Anybody else wouldn't clock it. It's done so subtly. A tone of voice or just one word that carries immense meaning to you. Those are generally, in a lot of cases, the only things that will happen out in public. And they're things that people wouldn't even notice. And that's by design. That is by design. So having evidence for coercive control, certainly for the more articulate, the more educated, the more the perpetrators who are of a particular standing in society, they are clever. They are master manipulators. They know exactly what they're doing. So it is going to be much harder for you to gather evidence against them prior to leaving. And that's another reason why, if you are able to safely exit before having to ring the police, you're more likely to give them enough rope that they reveal themselves. Now, why do they do that? Because whereas previously it was done behind closed doors, once you've safely exit, they don't have that that shield of protection of the front door that they can close and carry on that behavior behind that closed door. So therefore, the only thing that's open to them is telephone access, turning up wherever if they know where you are, which ideally, if we're exiting as safely as possible, ideally we don't want them to know where we are. But if they do know where you are, and then the key thing is that you're away from them and that you can gain more evidence. But if they're showing up and being volatile, if they are been sending you messages that are antagonistic and abusive and slanderous even, you have evidence of that. Now, the other thing that I would say to anybody is once you have safely exited, it is important to get boundaries in place. Now, boundaries is not something any victim, anybody who's been subjected to that sort of behavior, whether as an adult or whether as a child or both, in some cases, is good at. But we have to, that's one thing we need to start and master is boundaries, putting down boundaries that keep us safe. And if you don't have children with the perpetrator, it becomes far easier. You can cut off all communication. There's no need for you to have any communication with them at all. And if they do contact you, you swiftly send a message, I do not want you to contact me. Very straightforward. If you have children with the perpetrator, it becomes a little bit more complex because sometimes you may need to facilitate some sort of communication, particularly if it's being court ordered. Now, if you haven't got to that stage, my recommendation to you would be initiate court proceedings immediately yourself. Don't wait for them to do it. You do that yourself because what you don't want to do is open the door up to be accused of alienating them from the children. So if you then put down firm boundaries in regards to contact, I would try to facilitate in the early stages contact via a third party. If that's if the children are willing to speak to them, of course. If the children are afraid of the other person or the other parent, then I would honour the children's feelings and have the courts handle it. But so long as you take immediate action with the family court, that's the main thing. You don't want to open the door up to be accused of alienating. If the children do want to engage with them, then you organise safe arrangements via a third party, but you must put something down in writing, whether that is via if you do have a solicitor, via a solicitor. If you don't, if you're self-representing, you have a You send an email, you send a text message, but you must have it in writing and documented where you're clearly stating what the boundaries are around communication. And that is that they must, if any communication is taking place between you and them, that it only is in relation to the children. That's it. If you have initiated court proceedings, then if you are self-representing, then any exchange of anything outside of anything directly related to communication and contact and anything to do with the children that they may be entitled to be made aware of and be informed of. You So anything where you have to exchange documentation for court, if you're self-representing, that's the only thing you do is just send the documents. That's it. No dialogue, no communicate, no discussion about anything. You send the documents and that's it. If you've got a solicitor, you get your solicitor to do it. You don't need to handle any of that. But it's really important to stipulate very, very clearly that all communication must be, this is what I want, this is what I do not want. I do not want you to call me, message me, email me, or anything outside of a certain particular set of ground rules around the children. Anything outside of that, it's not wanted. It's not wanted. So there's no ambiguity. And that's where we come on to stalking and harassment. This is a far easier crime to get over the line than coercive control. Coercive control, we have mental health that will always be a stumbling block. It is a perpetrator's best friend, as I said. It's one of the biggest get out of jail cards going because it means that if there's mental health problems, it's difficult for them to prove that their intention was. And take it from somebody who's been there, done it, got the t-shirt. My ex got NFA'd for some very serious offences against me on the grounds of mental health. I quote unquote, we don't deny anything he did, but he didn't mean you any harm because he has mental health problems. Now that's not if they did look at the patterns of behaviour, and this is why I am a real stickler when it comes to patterns are your best friend in a case like this. Patterns will save your life every time. But we have to get the professionals to take the patterns seriously, and that's the difficult part. So it has to be documented and presented in a particular way, in a way that it's harder for them to ignore. But stalking and harassment, we just have to prove that it's taken place and that they were aware that the behaviour was not wanted. And that's why I always say to everybody who I support, please get it down in writing. Please send them an email specifically saying, this is not wanted behaviour, so there's no ambiguity. No ambiguity whatsoever. If you've put it down in black and white, this behaviour is not wanted. I do not want you to do X, Y, and Z. And if they still continue to do X, Y, and Z, what you only need two or more incidences, and that is enough to open up a case. Now, there are occasions where police will say, but I don't believe that you were scared. First of all, who are they to say whether you're scared or not? And quite often it's not unusual for victims to not understand and make sense of their own fear. So they can't articulate why they're scared. And there's lots of reasons for that, which I'll go into in a completely different episode. But the reality is, for stalking harassment, you don't need to prove that whether you're scared or not. You don't need to justify whether you are or you aren't fearful of that other person. You just need to prove that they were aware this behaviour was not wanted and they have continued to do it anyway. And a perfect example of this is the Alice Ruggles case. Now, Alice Ruggles is a really high profile case, and Alice rung through, he'd knocked on knocked on her bedroom window. She must have been on a ground floor apartment and knocked on her bedroom window late at night with chocolates and flowers. And he was like, I'm not going to kill you. Now, first of all, nobody says, why would anybody need to say, reassure anybody of that unless they had good reason to fear that was going to happen, that that was a possibility, or they had been made to feel that that was possible? Point number one. But he turned up with chocolates and flowers. And as the call operator said to Alice, was, well, us men, we can't win, can we? We give you chocolates and flowers and it's wrong. We don't give you chocolates and flowers and it's wrong. And she was asked, do you think it's a problem? Her response was, remember, she's not an expert. As the person who's impacted by another person's behavior, we should not be expected to be the expert in these in the crimes. But unfortunately, the reality is we have to in this day and age. That is why I trained. I trained out of necessity. But so Alice said, I don't know. And they took that as, no, no problem here. Because on the surface, right, it seemed like an innocent, even romantic gesture. And this is the point about stalking and harassment. That was not wanted. Those flowers and chocolates were not welcomed. So even if they send you gifts and you've made it very clear, I want nothing to do with you, nothing to do with you whatsoever, then clearly the presents, the gifts are not wanted. Soon after that, Alice was found dead on her bathroom floor by her flatmate. So this highlights how important it is. Please don't question your own version of reality. Some professionals will have you do that. But when if it's post separation or you've never ever been in a relationship with that person, even if on the surface it seems like an innocent act, if you've made it very clear that the behavior is not wanted, please always report it. Because we only need 2 or more incidences for them to open up a case. And this is why it's really important that you log it as a stalking and harassment case. Make sure that they do log it as a stalking and harassment case, because that is far easier to get over the line than coercive control. So I hope that's been helpful. Like I say, it is, even something really as simple as this is where victims, unfortunately, can fall into this trap. As a victim who is feeling unheard, disbelieved by the system, that they're reaching out to desperately for help and guidance and they're not getting it, this can cause many women in particular, it's mainly women this I see this happening with, where they're so desperate to be heard, desperate to be believed, desperate for their reality to be acknowledged by someone, that they will speak out publicly about the perpetrator, name them. Now you can talk about your story, and I do, but you must not make it so that they are identifiable. You cannot post videos, you cannot post pictures, you cannot post audios, you cannot physically name them on anything on social media. You can't go to their workplace and disclose what they who their evidence of what they're doing, because with unless they have been found guilty in a criminal court of law and sentenced for that offence, you cannot do that, and that will open you up to being criminalized yourself. Because remember, it's anything that's not wanted behavior. Doesn't matter whether they know it's true or not. In the eyes of the law hasn't recognised that allegation is true. Rightfully or wrongly, that's the law that we have. That's the rules that we have to live by. So therefore, it will be not unwanted behaviour. And if you engage in it, you could be open to criminalisation yourself. Again, another thing that can catch victims off guard. An abusive relationship only ends when a perpetrator says it can end. That's the truth. It only ends on their terms. So if they have discarded you and you are so trapped, still trapped in that trauma bond, and you're struggling to see how you can move forward without them in your life, you may be inclined to constantly call them, constantly message them, turn up where you know they're going to be, begging them to, you'll change, I'll do better. And, that is part of the abuse cycle. But nonetheless, remember, even though that is part of the abuse cycle and that is part of the coercive control tactics, we're still falling into the realms of we have to prove that that's what their intention was. But if the evidence is that they've told you, no, I'm not interested, no, leave me alone, no, go away, and you, as the discarded, who's drawn into this game, you're a pawn on the board, feels like is made to feel like you can't live without them, and you pursue trying to get that relationship back to feel some emotional safety, it will be deemed as you are the one who is stalking and harassing. Not that they are engaging in an extended version of the coercive controlling behavior towards you. And this is where the law is not black and white. So it is important to keep yourself safe. Safely exit first, and that's why it is one of the most dangerous times to leave. Dangerous times in an abusive relationship is when you leave, because the relationship does not end unless they say it ends. So if you've decided I've had enough, right, it's going to go down like a lead balloon. It is so often, so in so many cases, escalation. There may not have been any physical violence at all, or there may not have even been any direct threats towards somebody's life. But if all the other abusive, coercive control tactics have been at play, and you've now said, I am leaving, I've had enough, that will enrage them. It will enrage them. Now, this is a whole complex topic in itself. I'm not going to go into it on this particular episode, but things can escalate very, very quickly when you tell them you are leaving and you are ending the relationship. So this is why we have to follow a specific exit plan to keep you safe, and if you've got children, you and your children safe. So there's key things that we need to get in line. I will link in the show notes a safety exit plan. Now, we are working on at the moment as a community interest company in the UK, and my plan is to make this a global thing. That is my plan. More longer term is to have safe access points where we are partnering up with businesses who can act as a means of directing people to a safe access point. Now, I have built the safe access point already. That's already built. But I need to think of a way to more safely direct you to that platform. Again, when I've put something together, I might do a PDF with a walkthrough on how to access this safe access point, and I will put it in the show notes. Again, if you download it, this is really important, really, really important. If you're still living with the perpetrator, and of course, safe access point will only relate if you are living with the perpetrator, but you must delete any history of any downloads that you've done, any web browsers that you've opened up, because if your devices are being monitored, this could put you in danger and alert the perpetrator of what you're intending to do. So access it, but delete any history, please. This is absolutely very, very important. And that's the primary reason why I'm working on these safe access points. So it overcomes the need to have to download or go onto a website that's very, very obvious. This is the reason why I'm going through this process of getting the safe access points. The other thing that I want to say to you is, and I have put it in, obviously, all these safety exit things as well, but I will just highlight it here. If you're when you're still living under the same roof as a perpetrator, you must always wear clothing with pockets, whether it's a cardigan, jeans, so that you can keep your phone on you at all times. You can have take off any bulky key rings. Just have your bare essentials on your keys, your car key and your house key. That's it. So you can keep it in your pocket. That's in case you need to exit swiftly in an emergency. If things start to get heated, have a safe word with a trusted friend or family member. So if you need them to, even if it's just to pop over to interrupt any escalation in behaviour, a conversation's getting a bit too heated. If they turn up, the chances are that they will temper their behaviour because they've got an audience. But you're the person you're with better than anybody. So that's a judgment call you have to make, because you don't want to as well put other people in danger. You could have a safe word, another safe word for if you need them to call the emergency services for you. So that if they're looking over your shoulder, it doesn't look obvious. It can just be, I don't know, just a sentence. Hi, Mary. Are we going to the gym? And maybe put the word gym in capital letters. So that's an indication of that's my key word for I need help, that sort of thing. So it's less obvious, the key is to not bring too much attention to what we are doing. Also, always make sure that you are not backed into a corner. Because if things were to escalate, you need to be able to back away from that and move your way out of that room. That was a situation I got myself in. I didn't get myself into it. I was in where I was backed into a corner. I had nowhere to go. He was there like this, threatening to punch me, and he was taking enjoyment out of seeing the fear in my face. And he'd pushed himself to the point where he was about, and again, this is a topic I will talk about on a different day, but he's pushed himself to the point of tipping from control to non-control. He found it made him feel godlike, made him feel powerful, knowing that he could lose control and he was capable of anything. And at that moment, he turned, grabbed a glass, and threw it so hard against the wall in my direction, it smashed the Brita kettle into 3 parts. Now, afterwards, when I was challenging him over this, and again, that's another point. Don't challenge them over it. You know, they're never going to agree with you. You know you're right. You don't need them to confirm that you're right, because it's never going to happen. All that's going to happen is you're just going to fuel the situation more and increase your risk, which is exactly what I did. You know, he got up and he went into the kitchen. Now, he just said to me, nobody would believe me. And that's when I hit record, because I thought, you know what? I'm going to make sure I'm believed. Now, I took a big gamble by doing that, a big risk. But I caught him on camera, getting a knife in each hand and coming towards me and repeating, everybody thinks they're the big I am until they're not. Now, fortunately, I had my back against the. I wasn't backed into a corner at this point on this occasion, so I was able to move backwards, away, out of the kitchen, towards the front door, and that was where I made a beeline to, was the front door. And that's the important part: is you must not do not at any in any circumstances have yourself backed into a corner. Always position yourself so that you can safely move yourself away, move yourself backwards or out of that room so that you're not trapped. You need somewhere to go, somewhere to move to. Ideally, you don't want to be far away from a front door or a back door, or a door that you can get out of, essentially. So that's another point that I just wanted to highlight. So for this episode, I'm going to leave it there. And check out the show notes if you need it. The safe exit point. If there's any professionals listening, please keep all of this in mind when you are engaging with anybody who is still living with the perpetrator. Just telling them they need to get out. Yeah, you're pointing out the obvious. It's how do they do that safely? So keeping all of these things in mind that I've covered today is really important. And download the safety exit plan and keep that with you so that you can effectively guide that person through a process, and you can maybe even support them through it, help them implement different things. But it's really, really important that exiting is done safely. And if we can avoid ringing the police until we have safely exited, then we must take that course of action first, because we can't guarantee that the police are going to take action. And if they don't take action, then your risk has increased. And we're more likely to gain further, more substantial evidence post-separation because we do not have the block of everything happening behind closed doors. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it is that patterns save lives, and timing is just as important. Thank you for listening. If you're navigating abuse, you'll find support in the show notes. And if you're a professional looking to deepen your understanding, or a survivor ready to turn your lived experience into purpose and become part of the change, you can register your interest there as well. To close, I'm going to leave you with a track that was created to reflect the message behind this work and the reality many people are navigating every day. The song is called Rise Above. Until next time, stay aware, stay curious, and most importantly, stay safe.
Everyone deserves peace, everyone deserves light. Not manipulation, control, not pain and not fright. If it's stealing your joy, then why you calling it love? We gotta break this cycle, we gotta rise above. And you can see the warning signs when the tone gets cold, when respect disappears and the lies unfold. Don't ignore the red flags when you seeing them clear. Nobody deserves to be trapped or living in fear. Yo, these small wounds now turn to big scars later. We gotta elevate and move on to something greater. Some people call it just a toxic love romance, but anything toxic can work given a chance. If you wanna know how this thing is really gonna end, pay attention to the signs you can see in advance. Yo, if it's true love, then why you feeling so small? Nah, true love wouldn't try to hurt you at all. Let go.
Say it's just love, but it don't feel right. Pain in my heart, crying tears all night. If it ain't real, I don't need that love. Time to break free, time to rise above. You say it's just love, but it don't feel right. Pain in my heart, crying tears all night. If it ain't real, I don't need that love. Time to break free, time to rise above.
So many trapped in the cycle and they can't break free. Don't ignore warning signs and negative energy. It ain't all rainbows and straight positivity, but nothing should take away your mental stability. Yo, violence always start when respect is gone. So if they showing disrespect, just leave them alone. Yo, it's time to elevate and you'll be fine on your own. You a king, you a queen, you belong on the throne. Let go.
Say it's just love, but it don't feel right. Pain in my heart, crying tears all night. If it ain't real, I don't need that love. Time to break free, time to rise above. You say it's just love, but it don't feel right. Pain in my heart, crying tears all night. If it ain't real, I don't need that love. Time to break free, time to rise above.
It's time to elevate, know what I'm saying? We gotta break the cycle. We gotta recognize abuse. We gotta recognize the patterns. You a king, you a queen. Respect yourself. Demand respect from others.